Welcome to another Monday session with the Investment Dominator. And today we're going to be focused on our big three. And for those of you who do not know what our big three consist of, that'll be our profile section, our company information section, as well as going over how to do our domains, as well as getting your domain security too. So a lot of information on this call, and I want to thank everybody for joining. You can go ahead and see on your screen right now. If you guys want to go ahead and submit questions, you can go ahead and do that just by clicking on the questions tab and submitting your question. It is going to be the best way to kind of interact with the stream, as well as any questions will be answered towards the end after we discuss our big three. And just want a reminder for today's call and today's purpose, it's geared towards beginners and getting you first started up with the Investment Dominator. So any advanced questions, I'm going to go ahead and save that for Thursday. But you can go ahead and submit those for today, and we'll just save that for then. So let's go ahead and start. So with the Investment Dominator, you'll notice that there's a LPG deal flow, and everything's going to be pretty much transparent with this deal flow. And this is just a set of goals that we have step by step, kind of like milestones that we do so you can achieve that end goal of selling that property. So you'll see here with the Investment Dominator, you have your company information, county data, offer requests, property details. So for instance, when you're importing your list, you're importing this into the Investment Dominator, and by doing this, then you can output these on the right, which you'll see here, such as letters, offers, websites, calculators and tools, analytics, or let's say team management for when your business really starts growing. So we're going to discuss how you can go ahead and get started and the best kind of tips to go about it as well in our recommendations. So as you first open up the Investment Dominator, you'll see there's a tour option. Currently have the tour as no, but if you go ahead and walk through the tour, you'll notice it walks you through all the tabs here between land and notes. Then you have as well tasks and profile, and then you have help and log out. So for this section, we're going to focus on the profile. So this is going to start off our big three, and just want to keep in mind when you're working on the profile section, none of this information is being used for marketing purposes. This is how customer support can best reach you. So just keep in mind, you'll have your first name here, last name there, and then you'll have email, where we could best reach you at, as well as a phone number. I just want to keep in mind that time zone as well, just preference if we were to contact you, just so that we know. Currently our company is based in Arizona. So next we have a really interesting section, and this is going to be the signature image. So you'll see here and all throughout the Investment Dominator, you'll notice question marks in between these brackets. These will either display helpful tips or requirements that you need to meet in order to generate documents, which we could go over later. But right here for signature image, you'll notice I have something here. Let's say that we wanted to upload a signature. You can actually go ahead. Let's actually generate a signature. Go over that one first. So when we're generating our signature, you'll just notice some display fields here. So for instance, you can enter your name as well as select some fonts, from which we have some pre-selected fonts. Just kind of want to put a note on this. We don't have any other fonts besides these. So that is a question that does come up. But let's see here. So I'll enter my name, Dominic. And I'll go ahead and select the font. Let's say Dancing Script. So do keep in mind that when you're generating a signature, if you're choosing another color besides the default color, let's say, oops, clicked out of that, a color like this, while it may look good, one thing you want to keep in mind is that your cost of printing is going to go up with the change, because it costs more to print another color besides the default color. So just keep that in mind, but let's go ahead and actually say that I wanted to keep this. Then I'll click the green button to insert my signature. So what you're going to notice is that it's going to take precedence here, and our old signature is going to be right there. So for instance, if we were to go and update, then our new signature which we created is displayed right there. So the other option was the option that I originally started with, but let's say for instance we wanted to upload a signature. So I have a signature here, and you'll actually notice that once you pick a picture, I believe this is in the PNG format or JPEG, but you actually can choose the crop size on how you want to get this signature. So play around with that and see what best works for you. But once you're done, always remember to come straight down here and hit that update button. And that's going to set all the changes that you made within the Investment Dominator. So that goes over the signature image. And again, here's some formats that can be uploaded. Besides that, you'll notice a password section here. So if you ever want to change your password, you could actually come right here, as well as that option for enable Tor. You can go ahead and set that. So let's say, for instance, I want to put that as yes. I'll go ahead and update. And that's going over the profile section. So since that's the first item on our big three, the next item that we have is going to take a little bit more time to discuss. So if you are taking notes, now's a really good time, and we also will introduce some articles as well that can help us with it. So for instance, if you go over to the customize section of the Investment Dominator, we were just at the profile. So click over here to customize. You'll notice up at the top, company information. Go ahead and click that drop down. And what you'll see here is all of the fields which are going to be required for our big three, our second item. So this is company information. And the reason why we're talking about taking down notes and making sure we can also understand what's going on is because we want to go over our phone system. So we're going over some of our recommendations that we have with Ring Central, and as well as other providers too, such as PatLive, and we're going to go ahead and get into that. But do keep in mind when we go over this section, it really is fluid in what you can choose. So you may not have to use the exact services. For instance, PatLive can be switched with something like Smith AI. We also recommend another option for Google Voice or a Skype number. So do keep in mind that these are our recommendations and they are proven. So we want the best results for everybody, and this is what we're recommending. So with that being said, let's briefly skim over the company information section, and let's try to kind of understand all the little tidbits that are involved with the phone system. For instance, you'll see here company phone, and we also have offer phone, and last but not least, we have selling phone. So these are all going to be involved in a bigger picture, and we actually have a diagram that'll help just for your knowledge, as well as explaining it to the Ring Central representative exactly what you want. So company phone, we have company phone here as a number 510-555-4545. So I'm labeling this the extension 1. So this is being pointed to PatLive or Smith AI, and we'll go over that in a little bit more detail right after this. So company fax I just have listed as NA for demonstration purposes. If you do have a fax number for your company, we don't really see it too often, but if you do, you could go ahead and actually put that down there. But the next section here, company email, you want to use an email which you can best be reached at, and this is for business purposes, so do keep that in mind. You'll also notice I have company email here filled in, but when we look at the later emails for offer email as well as the selling site email, they're actually blank. So because of this, I'm defaulting all of the emails, so offer email and selling site email, to this one company email. So do keep in mind that is an option and a route that you can do. But if you are organized and you are able to kind of multitask in those regards, do keep those spots in mind. But the next field here is company name. So big thing about company name, if you already have your LLC name, you'll go ahead and just put, like I have in the example here, the company name and then LLC. But you'll also see another example that I have here. So DBA. So if you're in the process of getting your company name and you have not actually completed this yet, this is going to be your best alternative to those regards until you do get that LLC. But do keep in mind, the whole goal is to really get that LLC. And that's something that you just want to keep in mind. Then the next section that we have here is company address. And I have an address here, 345 Sunny Road Lane. One thing that I want to note about the company address field is even if you are working remote, you do not want to list your actual home address under this field. And the reason being is when you're working with these deals, you never know what can be predicted in terms of the other person that you're sending to, and if a deal goes south, you wouldn't want to put yourself in a position like that. So just keep in mind, for company address, we're going to recommend another option that you can do, which is actually going to the UPS store and getting a PO box and getting a mailbox. And what you're going to basically do, let's say if you're going that route, is you're not going to want to put PO box. You're not going to want to put this under this company address field. Instead, you're just going to want to take the address of the UPS store that your mailbox is at, and you're going to want to just go ahead and put that address there. When they send you the mail, then it is going to be forwarded to you, and they'll direct that to your mailbox. But when you're sending out your mailings, you want to keep in mind, you want to keep everything clean cut and professional. So just go ahead and put that regular address of the UPS store. And let's say, for instance, the next field, company city, go ahead and list that, as well as company state, followed by the zip code. So again, for instance, if you were using the UPS store, you can go ahead and list that directly as follows. Next, we have offer phone. One thing I want to highlight about the offer phone is you'll notice it's the same number. So 510-555-4545. This is listed as our extension 2, which we have here as Google Voice or Skype. With that being said, the next field is our offer email, which again, if you do want a separate email for that offer email, you can go ahead and list that. But if not, there also is that alternative. So now we have our selling site phone. So the big difference about the selling site phone is you'll see it's a completely different number then our extension 1 and our extension 2. That's a separate number all to itself. And, this phone number is of particular importance to be separate because, once it's ringing, it's about pennies on the dollar. And this is something that you really want to be aware of, kind of be reached anytime you can. And, this explains the reason why we have this as a separate number. But again, we're going to go into more detail about this in just a little bit. So then we have our selling site email, which again, if you choose to have that, go ahead and fill that out. But if not, the next thing you want to note is the company time zone. And then you'll have your company notes. So for instance, company notes, you can list something as your business hours. For instance, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is listed here. You can go ahead and put anything there, but that's kind of best to note. And then again, we have a field here besides company notes, real estate agent, broker, and disclosure. So if you are a real estate agent or a broker, you're going to have to disclose that information. So when you hit yes to that, you'll notice an agent disclosure field pops up. And depending on, where you're doing business and such, you would have to either add more information to this or take off information. But, if you are a real estate agent or broker, you would know that. So for instance, we are not. I'll go ahead and select no. The next field that we have here is tax ID type. So when we see tax ID type, you'll notice 3 fields, SSN, TIN, and EIN. So these are all going to be fields that you would enter for tax purposes only. So do keep that in mind. You're not required to enter this information in right away. But let's say, for instance, you are working through active loans with your properties, for instance, then you would be interested in our 1098 forms, and these would require generating, legal documents which are going to need this information. So you are able to do that through the Investment Dominator, and you could actually use our user guide, which we're actually going to showcase in just a little bit in order to kind of find those documents. But as well, if you have a question at any time, go ahead and I'll go back to the slide here. Go ahead and just type your question in down below, and we'll go ahead and answer that right after we go through our big 3. So besides tax ID type, that's the last field of our company information section. So now let's dive more into RingCentral. So when we're talking about our phone system, I'm going to zoom in here and hopefully this is clear for everyone. But when we're talking about our phone system, the reason why we bring up RingCentral is because they have an option where you can do a 2-line setup. So this is our recommended phone setup for 2 lines. Now, the numbers are being provided from RingCentral, so they're giving you a local number 1 and a local number 2. So these numbers, for instance, this local number 1, the reason why this is our recommended phone setup for 2 lines is local number 1 is being split into 2 extensions. So you have your extension 1 and your extension 2. So let's take a look back at the Investment Dominator, and we'll see here our extension 1 is our company phone. And our extension 2 is our offer phone. So our extension 1, we recommend another service which is called Pat Live. And Pat Live is a separate service altogether than RingCentral. So keep in mind, alongside with the Investment Dominator, there's RingCentral and Pat Live that we recommend. And the reason why we recommend Pat Live is because Pat Live is a 24-hour call center, and they're actually able to take in our new offer requests at high volumes. So, if you ever well, when you start to get more and more prospects and you're sending out your letters, for instance, and you're hearing back, rather than picking up all these calls yourself, which would be a big task altogether, pointing this to another service, for instance, like Pat Live, which is a 24-hour call center, then that's going to go ahead and process those new offer requests. So with that number done, that's our extension 1. So keep in mind, they're going to call this number, and then they're going to have the choice to press 1 or 2. So 1's going to go to Pat Live, and then we have 2 here, and 2 is different. So instead of Pat Live, let's go back to our Investment Dominator. We have here our offer phone, which you'll see here, and we recommend Google Voice or a Skype number as this one. And the reason being is your extension 2 is actually questions about your offer. So these are going to be people that are calling in with questions about what you sent to them. And you don't want this to be directed to extension 1, which is Pat Live, because they're processing new offer requests. They don't know details about your offer or anything, about that at all. So, this number is going to be directed to you so you can best describe and talk to people about your offer. But then we have our local number 2. So our local number 2, if we look back at our Investment Dominator, our selling site phone, this is going to be completely directed for questions about our land for sale. So do keep that in mind, and that really comes into play for our selling website as well. And for example, when we go over our domain section, we'll go ahead and actually talk about how we can set up a selling website. And do keep in mind the process is the same for the buying website as well too. But back to our Ring Central here. So this is our recommended phone setup for 2 lines. This is a cheaper alternative to the next option we're about to showcase. But do keep in mind, when you're investing in your services, if you are changing numbers, you really don't want to change numbers. You want to, be firm about what numbers you're using, because when you're sending your mailings, let's say for instance, you might get a call back from somebody, let's say like a year down the road. So you want to keep in mind of that when you're thinking about your phone system and how you set that up. But our recommended phone setup that we have here, for instance, with 3 lines, this is going to completely separate all the functions that are involved with the phone system. So for instance, you'll see our local number 1, that Pat Live is its own number, as well as this number 2, which is its own number, which is our questions about our offers. And then our local number 3 as well, which is questions about our land for sale. So 3 separate numbers, but do keep in mind that this route is more expensive. But again, when you're investing in something like this, this might be a good option for you. But alternatively, this is the option as well that we are recommending for our 2-line setup. So just keep that in mind, and we do have some articles which go over this in more detail and basically walk you through how you can exactly talk to this Ring Central representative, as well as seeing this diagram as well too. So that goes over our company information section. And do keep in mind, everybody, that you can view these recordings later, and we're going to actually show you how you can view those past recordings, just in case if you missed anything or if I'm going too fast. But the next section that we have is our last section of the big 3, which is going to be domains. So when we're looking at our domains, we're really going to want to be directed to our user guide. And the best way to reach that is by going up to the top right of the Investment Dominator and clicking on Help. Then once you click on Help, you'll notice a drop down here that says Search Our User Guide. And when you click that, you'll be prompted where you see a field which says enter a search term or a keyword here. So one thing I want to highlight with using our user guide is most of the articles are triggered by keywords. For instance, you see opt-in here, but the keyword that we're going to search right now is domain. So we'll go ahead and click search our user guide. And you'll notice the first article that it points to right here is how to configure your website's domain. Basically setting up custom domains. So the reason why we bring this up, and this is our third step of the big three. So you'll see here, when you first start with the Investment Dominator, you're given a website and it looks like this. You know, when you're sending out something and it's personalized and tailored to your business, you don't want to have a default name for your websites. So we're recommending a process to go and get 2 domains. So you're going to need a buying site domain as well as a selling site domain. And right here, you'll see the main point and the highlight of this article is you have to point your CNAME record to the Investment Dominator. And, you know, we understand a lot of the audience may not be as technical. So this article should really point to a step-by-step direction on how you can go about doing this process. But we're recommending GoDaddy, but do keep in mind that you're able to use any domain provider. For example, we have up here Namecheap, REI Blackbook, etc. So do keep that in mind. So you'll go ahead and log into your GoDaddy account, and you'll notice that this picture here, the actual GoDaddy website is updated quite a lot, so this image might not be as updated, but once you sign in, you'll go ahead and click on My Products. And now we're actually going to go ahead and jump into a live demonstration of this. So I'm already here in my GoDaddy account, and I'll click on My Products. And let's go ahead and click back here. So the next thing to do is to scroll down, it looks like, and go to Domain Manager. And it looks like we're just going to click on Manage here. So let's scroll down. And we'll see that. So my domain is a selling site domain. So you'll notice I have a name like lotsofcashoffers.com. And one thing I want to say about choosing your domain names is keep in mind that your selling site domain is going to have your properties listed. So you're going to want something that pops as compared to your buying site, which you can have as, let's say, joesbuysdirt.com. So just keep in mind of that difference there, but let's carry along with the article. So we'll go ahead and click Manage. And let's go ahead and look back. So now we're going to locate our domain, just make sure it's there, but we're going to go under the DNS section, and we're going to go under Manage Zones. So, yep, our domain's here. So DNS, and then we're going to go under Manage Zones. And one thing that I want to say is when you're getting your domains, keep in mind you're not going to want to go ahead and buy security along with your domains. Just buy 2 regular domains, and I do believe that should come around to 22 bucks. But let's carry along here. So now it's going to ask us to go ahead and actually search for our domain name under DNS management. So I could just go ahead and type O, and my domain name pops up here, so lotsofcashoffers.com, and I'll just click on that. So again, this is all explained in the article as well. And now we're going to scroll down, and we're going to go to a pencil icon where we see our CNAME record under Records. So let's go. So we're under DNS management. We'll scroll down, and then Records, we see CNAME. So this one here, let's go ahead and edit that. So you're going to want to change your fields to look like this. Under host, it's www. Then points to is investmentdominator.com. Then you'll see TTL, which is time to load. You're going to go ahead and set your TTL to custom. And then under seconds, you'll type in 600. And this should give you a fast response for updating your website as compared to before. And once you're done, you'll just hit save. And just keep in mind, all of that is explained in the article as well. Change it to Investment Dominator. Change that. So then once you're done with that, you'll hit the save button. Since it's already this, I'll hit cancel. Then you'll scroll down, and under forwarding, this is the next section you'll want to update. So forwarding allows for your domain to be entered just from your actual custom domain rather than the HTTP. So for instance, with that being noted, you'll see under domain from forwarding, hit the edit button, and forward to, you just select as HTTP, and then you'll type in your domain name here. So for instance, I have www.lotsofcashoffers.com. You'll select this as permanent, your forward type, and your settings, you'll set to forward only. So do keep in mind, you'll want to have the same exact settings as this. And then you'll see an option here, which is save for cancel, and you'll go ahead and hit save. So again, this is explained in the article here. But this option to update your name servers and DNS settings, instead of selecting this, GoDaddy actually does this automatically for you now. So you can actually just hit save. So once you're done, you've set up everything that you need to do in order to point your domain to the Investment Dominator. So now the next step is for you to map your domain to the Investment Dominator. So with that being said, we'll finish and close out with this domain section, and we'll go back to our Investment Dominator. This time we'll go under Customize, and we'll, for this instance, I'm working on my selling website, so website settings, selling. And I'll reset my domain just so I could show you guys exactly how it looks when you're starting this fresh. All right, just give me a second here. Go ahead and make that update. All right, so when you're first going to change your domain, you'll notice that you have the normal domain, which is here. So you'll go ahead and hit change your domain. And for this, I actually like to go back over here and just copy my domain straight from GoDaddy and come back. So when it says change your selling site domain, you'll see the old selling site domain, which was the default, and our new name. We'll go ahead and paste. I already copied it. So lotsofcashoffers.com. So the next step, it's going to ask you if you pointed this custom domain to Investment Dominator via a CNAME record. And we'll actually go ahead and hit yes, because we just did that process. Then we'll go next. And then it's going to ask us one more time. So in case if you did notice an error or something of that sort, you go ahead and do that. And we'll hit confirm. And that's just going to take a second there. But what you'll notice when you first do this within the Investment Dominator is it's going to take a little bit of time for it to register. So just give it about 24 hours when doing a new domain. And this goes for the security, which is going to be added on as well. So we'll see here our domain was changed. Please use your new domain to access again. So because I already have security on my website, I'm not given the option to do it there. But what you'll notice is, since you're setting up your website for the first time, there's another article in case if you accidentally clicked out of that option to get the security before. But let's go back to our user guide. And this time we're going to type in SSL. Now when we search for this, you'll see there's an article here called Generate and Install SSL Certificate for your custom domain. When you click on that, you'll notice some of the reasons why you want to get this SSL, which we call our secured socket layer for your website. So for instance, you'll see up here connection is secured, and you'll want to get this lock on your website, and the way to do that is by actually going back to the Investment Dominator. And if not, when you were first setting up your domain, you'll see another option here which says click here to secure your domain. But if not, it walks you through a process that looks like this. Go ahead and click the button to generate your SSL, and it will take some time, then it'll load, and then it'll tell you that it is done. So go ahead and hit OK. And that's really the change that you'll notice. It may take between 28 to 48 hours. I don't really expect it to take about 48 hours, but you may notice that depending on your domain. But that's walking through all of the big three with the Investment Dominator and everything that you need to get started. So now we're going to go ahead and open the floor to any questions that anybody has revolving around the Investment Dominator. And we'll do our best to answer that today. And of course, if we do not get to your question today, do keep in mind that on Thursday, we will also be dedicating an hour to all questions and answers involving the Investment Dominator. So before I go ahead and dive into the questions today, let's actually go back to our help section here. And what we'll notice is this field right here, this drop down for weekly live Q&A calls. So you have sessions which you can register for. Thank you for registering for our Monday session. Our Thursday session, you can also register for here. And again, these are recurring meetings. But if you did want to see replays of previous sessions, you can actually go ahead and hit this button here to view the replays of previous sessions. And if we wanted to grab, let's say, a Monday session, you'll notice we have right here the fields that we're walking through, so our big three, as well as the timestamps going accordingly for each video, as well as providing any of our questions that we have afterwards. And you'll see, for instance, 617 was a Thursday call, so all of our questions here listed out. So just keep that in mind. And with that being said, let's go ahead and open the floor to some questions. So let's go ahead and see. All right, so it looks like we have a question from Sahana, and they basically want to know more about the phone system setup, specifically going over the 2-line setup and how it's different from the 3-line setup. So let's go ahead and actually walk through that. Since we're spending extra time on this topic, you'll actually notice if you go ahead to our user guide and you type in Ring Central and you hit enter, you'll actually see an article right here which shows our diagram. So this is going to be your best way to kind of explain it as well as to visualize it if you're more of a visual learner. But if you are more into reading, we do provide detailed kind of explanations as to what the recommended setups are. So for instance, our 2-line setup as well as our 3-line setup. And again here, so we have examples of this as well. So just keep in mind, let's go ahead and walk through our recommended phone setup one more time. So we have our provider. So Ring Central here is going to be giving us our local number 1 and our local number 2. So because of this, this is going to be a cheaper route. So this setup, I believe typically should be around 34, if I'm not mistaken. But what you're basically getting is the two numbers. So your local number 1, your local number 2. And the reason why it's cheaper is because this local number 1 is splitting off into two numbers. So hence the reason for your extension 1 and your extension 2. So with that being said, your extension 1 is going to be, again, people that are processing those new offer requests. And for instance, when we speak in those regards, we're talking about Pat Live. So Pat Live will be processing our new offer request. And if you actually wanted more information about that, if you go back to our user guide here, we type in Pat Live and we search, you'll see articles here, and especially just kind of explaining the service as well as what they're going to be doing. Please go ahead and actually just search Pat Live, but we have an article here called Using a Call Center Service to Answer and Log Your Acquisition Calls. So this article is going to explain in detail why we really recommend Pat Live as this additional service, but going back to our original phone setup here, they're going to process those new offer requests, and that's going to be directed towards that number. So this local number 2, sorry, this extension for your local number 1, which is our extension 2, this is going to be people that are calling in with questions about your offer. So nobody else knows your offer better than you do. So this is going to be directed towards a number that can be best reached to you. For instance, we recommend Pat Live. Sorry, we recommend Google Voice or Skype. And this is the reason why you have the two extensions. So when we look at our 3-line setup here, local number 1, local number 2, local number 3, 3 separate numbers that are all dedicated to a specific branch, let's say. So local number 1 deals with Pat Live. Local number 2 completely goes to people who have questions about our offer. And local number 3 goes completely dedicated to questions about your land for sale. So you can kind of see which route would be best for your business and where you kind of want to invest in. But do keep in mind, no matter what you choose, you're going to want to test these numbers. So you're going to want to pretend like you're the user, per se, and you're calling in for Pat Live, and just make sure everything is set up, make sure everything is good to go, and then, you can go ahead and test your local number 2 as well as your local number 3 if you are using the 3-line setup. And if not, go ahead and make sure that when you're using the 2-line setup, just go ahead and call your local number 1 and test and see your extension 1 and your extension 2, and then as well as checking on your local number 2, just making sure everything is good to go as well. This comes into play when you're sending your letters. You always want to make sure and you test everything. And speaking of that, hopefully that answers your question, Sahana. And let's take a look back at the Investment Dominator, and we'll go to the land section here. So when we're looking at the land deals, let's say that we wanted to generate a campaign. So we have records already involved with the Investment Dominator, and we uploaded. I believe we have 10 records. Yep. So let's say we wanted to go ahead and send a mailing to these records. If we go ahead up here, actually, if we go over here to generate documents, I just kind of want to highlight that too. We are able to go ahead and see that we can go ahead and print our prospect neutral letters, as well as seeing our offers if we have any of those available. But what we just updated to the Investment Dominator revolves around the campaign section. So go ahead and click on that. And what you're going to notice is the campaign section has now been changed to more of a drop-down. So you'll see here, when we look at our prospect neutral letters, which is what we're going to aim to do first, so we're going to want to send out these letters, you'll see that if you click the drop-down for generate documents, we have a couple options here. So we have an option for local printer, for ITI direct templates. We have an option here, which is coming soon, for REI print mail, and another section last, which is labeled as other. So if you're not using the local printer, or if you're not using ITI direct, we do have another option that you can do. So when you do other, you're able to actually generate the documents that you need just in a format that's like such of a docx. And this format is selected here so that you can edit it exactly the way that you need it to be in order for you to send your mailing. So you may need to customize further and enhance, so you would go ahead and select this option. But keep in mind that you'll see these 3 documents which can be downloaded, and the one here is your CSV file. But if you wanted to download all 3 of these documents at once, you can actually just click on the download zip option. This is going to give you all of these documents here in just one folder. So besides other, let's say if you wanted to go off the local printer that you have at your place of business, then you do have the option for the doc format as well as PDF. And you do have an option to download a zip folder of all of these. So the last option that we have here is our ITI direct option. And what you're going to notice is that you have your PDFs, which are needed to be sent. And you also have the CSV template here as well too, which needs to be sent. So everything is exactly the same as it was before with the Investment Dominator. It's just more of an updated visual experience that's kind of being interacted with. So with that being said, you can go ahead and close. And we are going to have an option later for this REI print mail, but going over these options I do feel like was necessary, and do keep in mind what we talked about earlier. If you highlight over these question marks in between these brackets, you'll see that you have some helpful tips, which will be very important just for when you're especially moving on to the offers, and you might wonder, how I generate these documents for my offer. This is definitely a place for you to go ahead and review that. And as well as your custom documents that you create. So, once you send out your first couple of mailings, let's say if you want to change any of the letters and create your own documents, then you do have this option here for custom document templates, which if any of you want me to go over, I can go ahead and do that too. But if not, one thing that I do want to bring up is an issue, not an issue, but let's say if you run into a problem with the Investment Dominator and you trying to understand, let's say if you select 2 records and you want to combine basically one record with another. Let's say the information is really close, so you just want to basically overwrite the other record and keep that record that you choose. So you would go ahead and select the records, and then you will go ahead and hit merge. So when you're brought up to this field, you'll actually notice that you can select all of the information for the first record or all of the information for the second record by clicking on these check boxes here. So for instance, you can also just take some information while changing others. So just wanted to bring that up, but do keep in mind you'll want to remember your record ID number here. So if we go ahead and hit merge, I'm going to merge A with B. So we'll see records have been merged successfully. So now within my investment dominator, I have 10 records. So if at any time I wanted to check on, what happened with the investment dominator, the best way to reach and the best way to kind of go about that is clicking up here to the help section. Actually, sorry, you're going to go ahead and hit the team section. And then you'll go to your activity log. And what you're going to see here is a action. So you'll notice there's a date associated with each action, and this is going to give you basically a timestamp of when the action happened or was performed on the account. So do keep in mind this is for all activity on your account. So we're going to see merge D and merge U. So merge D tells you that this record was deleted. So merge D is standing for just deleted. And merge U stands for updated. So we'll notice we'll have the land deals here. And if we click on the one that was deleted, it'll say, sorry, this record no longer exists. So we'll go ahead and cancel that. And let's say, for instance, we actually made a mistake and we want to reverse what we just did, and we want to go back on the merge. So just keep in mind that you want to, have this record, this property record ID. You'll want to keep that down, but you'll go ahead and actually, under merge D, go ahead and undo that. And it'll say, are you sure? Just say yes. And then you'll see action, and it'll say merge D, undid. So with that being said, if we go back to our land tab here, and we click on select all, we now have 10 records. So everything's back in order and everything's back in place. So if you're ever running into that issue, or if you're ever trying to self-troubleshoot with the Investment Dominator and try to figure out exactly what happened, number one, always remember to update your site, as well as remember to just basically keep track of everything. And one thing next that I want to kind of bring up, let's see if we have any questions here. So let's see, we have a question from Scott, and it goes, how do we add our logo to the neutral letter, and do you have to make a custom letter? So for adding your logo, I do believe by default we can actually go ahead and look at an example of a prospect neutral letter. So let's see, we'll go to generate documents, and once we view our prospect neutral letter, we'll go ahead here to PDF, and this is our letter, and then this is our envelope, but let's just go over our letters. So for example, for this property, there's no way by default to have this logo, but we can go ahead and see if we can add that, and let's go ahead and go to our user guide. So user guide is going to be our best way to kind of search anything involving with the Investment Dominator, especially how to add to articles or documents. So for instance, we have article here. So add a custom logo on neutral letter. And we'll give that a second to load up. So for this example, you would actually have to create a custom neutral letter template, and you'll do see there's quite a lot of options that you can go and kind of go about doing this. But let's see, when you're creating your document, one thing you want to keep in mind is of these settings up here. And we can kind of walk through some of the steps. So let's go to customize. And since we're under customize, what we're going to do next is try to create that custom document. So we have here, add document. And I do believe it says all the document settings here that we can do to create that neutral letter. So let's say, for instance, we have to land only, and we have all the options that we could do here. So document title, neutral letter, and all the settings here. So give it a name, copy and paste. So again, here under document content, you'll see there's an option to copy and paste this content. So you'll actually just copy all this content that's provided. We'll go back to our document content. We'll hit source, and that information that we just copied, we'll actually just paste that. So now we have our letter here. And the next thing that we'll do is just add the image. So for instance, we have image function here. So let's go ahead and find that. So let's scroll down and say we want to add our image there. So we'll hit the image option, and then we'll go to upload. We'll choose a file. I believe I should have a logo here. So let's say this logo. So we'll send it to the server, and then we'll go ahead and hit OK. So now our logo is printed on our neutral letter. And this is going to be the best way to kind of go about this method. And again, this is not by default, so just keep that in mind. So once we're done with that, you can actually, once you've had everything selected, and this is a neutral letter, so we'll go ahead and change this to move to the milled letter 1 once we're done. So we'll hit add. Oh, forgot, and we'll add that prospect status to the beginning. And then we'll go ahead and hit add. And now we have that there. So let's test this real quick. If we're going to test this on a record, we'll go ahead and generate documents under custom document template. Oh, I forgot what I had called it. I think I might have just called it neutral letter. I'll see here. Maybe that should be it. Right, so you're going to want this displayed in a PDF. So just keep in mind of that option. I do believe I can get to that before the end here, but within custom documents, if we go back to our neutral letter, so under document file type, we want under doc and PDF. We'll set that to both, and then we'll update. So that should give us our option now. We'll go ahead and generate that document one more time. Under neutral letter, we'll now see the option here, and that should generate there. So you will notice that this will change the formatting of my overall letter, so I might want to adjust the image as much as possible. But do note that this is completely a possible way that you can do that. So hopefully that helps you. But that's going to be our last question for today. And let's end on a quote, as always, just to kind of keep things going along. So we have here a quote from Lonzo Ball, and the quote goes, "A lot of things are going to happen that you can't necessarily control all the time, but you can control what you do after it happens. Keep your head up, keep moving forward, stay positive, and just work hard." So when you're working with the Investment Dominator, just keep in mind that there is always a support option that you have here, this help section, as well as these calls to kind of bring you up to speed, as well as provide support for any questions you may have, or let's say you need to create a support ticket and discuss further issues or more about your account. So just keep in mind that we're all in this together, and it really is a learning experience for everyone, just to kind of welcome you and bring you forth with the Investment Dominator. But do keep in mind our next session is going to be on Thursday, That's 12 p.m. Mid-Standard Time. So do keep in mind, sign up for those sessions, and we'll go ahead and keep you updated along the way. So thank you all for joining today, and we'll go ahead and see you on our Thursday session.